Welcome back to the A&S Way. Today we are taking you to one of our favourite places. It is the Red Rock National Park. Right by where we live actually. It's with, 5 minutes from where we live currently?
Yeah, maximum, maybe about 3 minutes. I could probably, I was going to say I could ride it in 5, I can't. I can ride it in about 7 minutes. So we've mentioned this in our top 5
things to do.
And we showed you the sign that's behind us, but we didn't actually go into Red Rock. Somewhere we go relatively regularly when we come here.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd take you on a tour while giving you an update. I'm very ill today, by the way.
He's been poorly.
I've been ill for the last week or so I'm trying to keep my energy up for the filming.
For you guys. But we thought we'd show you because we haven't shared this with you before. And for any of you that do come here, the sign is before you get to the park. So if you do want a picture with the sign, just pull over. It's quite easy. It's usually it's not like the Vegas strips.
No, it's very rare. And what was interesting is it's 11 o'clock at the minute, and there was nobody here. Immediately as we pulled over, every car behind then also.
We clearly attracted the crowds.
But even if you see 4 or 5 cars here, it'll take you about 3 minutes to wait to queue to take a photo.
Yeah, that's fine. And we're just going to head over to the park now. Last time we came here, you had to book a slot to come, but when I went on the website yesterday, it claimed that between June 1st and October that you do not need to book. So we'll see if that's true when we get there. We made it. We got into the park. They're not requiring any reservations. And the first thing that struck me was just how not busy it is. When we came, it was coming in March and April. It was a lot busier.
Yeah, maybe 2 to 3 months ago.
But I'm guessing it's to do with the heat. So if you do come to Red Rock, anytime from, I would say, July, even June onwards, June, July, August, it is extremely hot. So I'm sure that's one of the reasons why people don't come here as much. And in fact, they warn you about the excessive heat.
Maybe people are still worn out from the 4th of July.
Yes, that's another thing. So this weekend was our first 4th of July weekend in the USA. Not that we did much.
Yeah, we did absolutely nothing. It doesn't mean that I don't really understand. I know it's independence from us, but I don't know what it really means in terms of freedom, because I'm sure they still had slavery at the time, so it's quite confusing. So I'm not sure who was free from the Brits and who wasn't. So I'm guessing I'm going to have to research it at some point to really understand why it's such a big celebration.
But pretty much from Friday evening, I think, there were fireworks every evening going off. And then the main celebration on 4th of July, which was on Sunday. And then Monday was a national holiday here for us. So we wasn't sure. Yesterday, yes. So we wasn't sure, because of the national holiday on the 4th of July, whether it'd still be busy in Vegas with lots of tourists, but it doesn't seem to be.
No, it's without a doubt, the emptiest I've ever seen it. We've been here, 4 times?
Yeah, and it's never been this empty.
Right.
So.
And to be honest, it's not actually that hot, because we've been used to 45, 46. It's actually, what do you reckon, about 38 at the moment?
Yeah, it's very manageable compared to some of the other heat.
So the way it works is, we actually should have stopped at the visitor centre, I've just realised. So when you come in, you either pay when you arrive, which is $15 per car, I think $5 per bike. Regardless of how many people you've got in the car, it's the same price. Or if you've got the year pass, which we've mentioned before, you just show them and they wave you through. There's then a visitor centre on the left, which has, that's the pass, which has lots of information, toilets, drinks, etc. And then it's called a scenic loop here.
Yeah, so they give you this when you arrive. I don't know how well you're going to see that, but it's literally a loop.
And I can't remember how many miles. I think it's like 13 miles round, or 21 kilometres roughly. It's about the size of the Nürburgring, actually, the racetrack.
Related to something.
Yeah. But at each point where you can stop off, there's actually trails and hikes that you can do, some of which are designated for hikers and some of which are designated for mountain bikes and hikers, so that if you're on a hiking trail, you're not going to expect to come across a bike. What we will do is we'll stop off at 1 or 2 of them and just show you what some of the trails look like.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth visiting. And having done a few, I would say a couple of the hikes here now, the scenery can change vastly here. So what you see here is not necessarily what you'll find as you go exploring. We've made it to, actually this is the third stop around the scenic loop at Red Rock, but this is the next major stop. And I'm still surprised at how empty it is. I guess we're just not used to seeing it this empty. But we wanted to point out to you that at each stop there's these signs that give you the name of the trail, but it gives you information of where you are, which is always good to know. But also if you are looking to do one of the hikes, information on what you can find there, how long it is, and how it all links. And that's what we've done in the past, just looked at these to give us an idea of which one we want to use. The other thing to note is there are restrooms, as the Americans like to call them, dotted around. So you've got them at the visitor centre, but even if you need to use one, there's lots around the park as well.
We're at stop number 3 for us. I don't know which mile mark it is.
I think it's number 4 overall.
And you'll notice they're all very different. So this one overlooks the basin of the Red Rock Canyon. So there's, I want to say mountain range, but really these aren't like mountains in Europe or Canada. These are big rocky hills.
Yeah.
They're not like huge. They're maybe a couple of 100 feet. I don't know how much they are above sea level, but in terms of actual scalable height, they're a couple of 100 feet. It's not like 10,000 or 8,000. So this one overlooks the basin, which is really nice. And the one that you last talked at, you'll see it's very green there. So some of it's rocky and dusty,
yeah.
Some of it's red rock, some of it's greenery, some of it's sandy, and it varies massively depending on which side of the canyon you're on.
Yeah, and this is I would say definitely stop at this spot if you come, because it's a good place. They've got seating areas. One thing to mention with coming here, you don't have to be into hiking or climbing or doing any sort of...
You can just cruise it.
Yeah, cruise. If you just...
15, 20 miles an hour.
Exactly. Just in your car, stop when you want, have a little walk, just stand. You really don't have to exert yourself.
The first couple of times we didn't hike. We drove. Yeah. We walked for maybe a couple of minutes.
That's it.
And then we went back to the car and drove around and just took in the views, really.
It's a very, very nice place. And if you do decide to hike, I would say it's incredible what you end up seeing, because the first time we decided to do it, we truly appreciated just how different, exactly what Ant's saying, it can change so quickly, the landscape and the environment, and it can be dead silent as well.
Yeah, and there's a little, I forgot what it's called now. Is it called a creek? No. There's a trail that's supposedly the spring, that's what it is. Yeah. But there is actually a spring there. We didn't quite get it because Selena thought we'd completed it. And I kept saying, no, there should be a spring. And we didn't. And she's like, no, maybe it's just called that. So maybe it was there years ago. But then on the way back, we caught up with that girl and she said, did you get to the water? So now we know there is water there. I don't know if it dries up. I don't know if it's a large body.
If you do decide to do anything like that, though, be prepared. Have the right shoes, have snacks, have lots of water, because I think the first few times we attempted things, we realised we were not prepared. Have a cooler box in your car so you've got extra water in case you get hangry as well. Carry sandwiches.
I would say, depending on what you like with food, definitely food, but the priority would be bring water. It seems really obvious and silly, but it isn't just hiking or riding that you'd normally need water, because it's so dry. Even now, we've been out for a couple of minutes, everything's gone dry, so you feel like you need more. Although we did recently watch yesterday or the day before the 2 bikers that rode across Death Valley with nothing.
Minimal water.
So stupid. It was impressive because we watched all of it. It was like an hour long. But yeah, they set off with minimal amount of water and then sort of found people on the way and were riding sometimes 50 miles without water. Don't do that.
Don't do that, yeah.
They had a support crew, so if something went wrong, they could have just got in the back of the car. Don't attempt to do that on your own.
Definitely not.
Got to, I think this is a new one, or relatively new. It's at least wasn't here last time we drove around before we lived here, called Grand Circle.
Grand Circle and...
Yeah, it's called Grand Circle Loop Trail, and it looks like it's a driving one. It does say not maintained, high clearance vehicles only. We're in high clearance, so we'll give it a go, see how far we can get up here. If there's anything interesting, we'll show you.
Yeah. Exciting.
Even though this is our 5th, 6th, who knows how many times now, we just found something new. So we took a drive up they designate it for 4x4s, so it has to be quite high ground clearance. 90% of it you'd be fine in a normal car. There's a couple of bits where you potentially, if you're not going to take your bump off, you're probably going to hit your, as the Americans call it, your muffler or your exhaust on the underneath of the car, because there's some big rocks that you have to go over. So I wouldn't recommend it, but if you've got a car you don't really care about, maybe give it a go. Otherwise you have to walk it, and it's quite far to walk, and it's just open land, so there's no protection. But we're now here, and it looks like they're relatively new, these trails, and there's absolutely nobody here. So there's 3 different or 4 different trails here?
4 different trails. So each of the signs, and I pointed it out at the second stop, has a name. So we've got Keystone Trust here and White Rock Mountain, but they have the name of the trail with the information on how long it is. So 1 mile, 2 miles, whether it's there and back, whether it's a loop, and what you can do. So hiking, whether you can take pets. These ones you can take your horses if you happen to have horses.
So what was strange is I understood that you could use hike or mountain bike here, but the actual key or the legend, are they called? Yeah, it's legend, isn't it? There is no bike sign, but there are horse signs on there now. So you're allowed to, on a lot of them, you hike only, but it looks like there's quite a large number where they are hikeable and horseable.
Horseable.
Because at least these 2 here, and it looks like one of them over there, you're allowed to take your horse on. So
not that we've seen anyone with their horses.
Yeah, if you happen to have a pet horse here, bring it with you.
Bring it along.
Guess. But oh no, do you know what it is? I was just thinking, like, where would that be? Opposite Red Rock. So this is actually a tip if you're into it. I'm not into riding any animals. Literally opposite here, there's in
case you were wondering.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't really agree with it. I know horses have been ridden forever. The last animal we rode was I didn't want to do it, but it was part of this package, and we got on the camel and like, no.
Oh yeah, that wasn't too pleasant.
So I'm not into it. However, there is a tour that you can do, and it starts off just across the road, or at least that's where the company is, where they do horseback riding, and they bring you into here. So that actually makes sense why they've done that now. So they must have some sort of agreement with them. Good for tourism, good for local business, I guess. So you bring your horse here. It was just more, I was thinking, well, it's a holiday destination. Who's bringing a horse with them here?
People are not bringing their horses from home.
There's not really any ranching here to be done.
There might be, though. There is a ranch across.
Anyway, you can ride your horse. So what we're going to do now, we're not going to go that far, but we're going to pick one of the 4 trails. So the other ones are just over there. If I can point the camera correctly, seems to be off. The other 2 are over there, and even though they start in the same place, they diverge off in different directions, and you can probably see for yourselves. Here it's very rocky, lots of shale going into Red Rock, and the bit we were just standing at here is very green, and then some dusty stuff.
What's really nice as well, the map they give you that we keep forgetting to use today, on the back it has the descriptions of what you can see on the trails, so which trails you're more likely to see animals on, which one is more green water,
what we think is a chipmunk.
Yeah.
It's about
very cute,
this big, because you're like, oh, a squirrel.
It wasn't a squirrel.
They're kind of, but they got much smaller tails. They're not bushy, and it just jumped around.
So you can see a chipmunk.
Apparently there's rattlesnakes, or at least snakes. I think there are rattlesnakes that we saw the sign for, and then various other critters like scorpions. Haven't seen, is there any deer in here? There might be.
I think Willow Springs, so the other hike that we've done before, apparently you can see deer or some, I don't know.
Maybe goats?
Yeah.
Goats live in the mountains.
Some form of 4-legged animal that you could possibly see.
Picked a trail now, and there were 4, so didn't know which one to pick, so I picked the one that most looks like a mountain bike trail. They're not, but this would be really fun to ride. It's a nice gradient, it's got stuff that you need to avoid, it's a little bit loose, so I'd like to bring my bike here.
Whether he's allowed is a different thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
Clear.
I'm sure they used to allow, there was designated mountain bike areas,
I thought
but
that, and I feel as though mountain biking is such a popular sport activity here that they would be very specific about where you can.
yeah.
Especially if they're telling you where you can bring your horse.
So maybe they've got rid of that completely. Mount Charleston, which is, I don't know how far, but not far from where we live, that has mountain bike trails on it. And also there's a lot of, they're not real trails as in it's not in a centre, but I don't know how many miles now, but maybe like 2 miles from the entrance of Red Rock, there's a lot of the man-made ones or just trails that you can follow yourself. So maybe they've decided not to have it in here.
Yeah, because Mount Charleston on their map, they have it, but they also have, if I remember correctly, they let you know how hard the route is as well. So if it's a hard trail, difficult, so they have a difficulty rating, which is more like what you would expect for mountain biking.
Yeah. If it's a managed site, they will usually have a guide that tells you, and it's measured in diamonds and colours. So you have green, blue, red, black. The only problem with the difficulty rating is it is 100% subjective. So, for example, a black or a black-red in Bike Park Wales might be a blue in Whistler. So you can't expect that, okay, I've ridden a black-red at Bike Park Wales, I'll just jump straight onto the red. You're probably going to hurt yourself. So they're completely subjective to the people that have built them. Unless it was built by the same group of people, which they never are, then don't expect to be able to just carry it over. But you're right, there is a grading system to give you some idea. And then the other thing on Trail Forks, which is the really popular mountain bike, it's basically community led. So people come out, find trails, go to bike parks, and then they grade them, but they also then do a measure against that grade to say whether or not it was meeting that grade or more difficult, less difficult, more fun, less fun. We finished up our mini hike. It was really a mini one.
And little off-roading experience,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that.
Sally's struggling with the heat.
Yeah, when we got back, because Ant hasn't been feeling well, I've asked him, oh, how are you feeling? He said, oh, well, I'm not feeling worse. And then at the time I was thinking to myself, well, I definitely feel worse. And I'm not even ill.
So mine is not heat related. I've got a cold or something, feel a bit sickly. Whereas hers is directly related to the heat. And this is the thing, it really depends here on how well you cope with the heat. Well, we just had the conversation in the car. So I can handle a reasonable amount of spice. Definitely not the most. We watch people like Mark Weens, and he just blows my mind every time. He'll eat the hottest chilies, but like 10 of them, and just be like, oh, I'll add some more on. And you can see he's not doing it for the camera. He can eat that hot.
Not reacting at all.
But often, when I haven't noticed that something's hot, Selena will or my dad will. It's very similar here. So it's hot. I recognise it's hot, but it doesn't bother me. I would go out and just do my normal things. It doesn't really affect me that much. Whereas somebody like Selena, it's affected more. And then there's, I think our neighbour, when her friends come over, said she cannot handle the heat at all. So some people actually have to stay indoors when it gets over 30.
And I mean, today it's, what is it, 38 degrees at the moment?
Yeah, it's 38 at a minute.
And because it has been above 40 degrees in the last 3 weeks-ish, so now I've really noticed the difference. So to me, today felt fine as we started, but then obviously not as 10, 15 minutes in. I feel a bit sickly from it. That's the best way to describe it. So not feeling the best.
If you are going to come in the spring, summer time, you do really want to be careful and maybe try a couple of really short hikes, maybe a quarter of a mile, half a mile, do it once, go, move on to another one, try it again, see how you feel before you decide to do 3 miles and then realise 3 miles in that you're feeling really sick, and then you've got to do 3 miles to get out or complete the whole thing. We know this, or we should know this. One of the very first trips we made here, your German colleague, she got extremely sick, extremely ill really quickly, and it was really surprising to both of us because we'd only been out of the car maybe 2 times.
And I was running.
Yeah, and she just went downhill. That was it. It was game over. She just couldn't handle it. So we didn't recognise it, but she did.
Yeah, so everyone's different. But yeah, we're at the end of our trip to Red Rock. It's been interesting. We've been noticing, because we've been coming here for at least a good...
2015 maybe?
Yeah, probably
before?
since before then, and
So
we've
6
really
years.
seen the difference. That they're continually updating the park, the parking areas, like where you've got benches and
They're
just
creating new trails.
trails.
All of the toilet huts look brand new as well. Then look, the toilet huts look great, and they've got new seats in there. They're not. Don't come and think they've got running water. It's a hole.
Yeah.
That's how it is. All of the national parks are the same, so don't come expecting you've got running water. There's no taps.
Not unless you go to the visitor centre.
Yeah,
That's
right
usually
at the
okay.
beginning, which is plumbed in. But they actually are kept really fresh. They look like they've been put in within the last few months. So the $15 to get in or the $90 a year, you might be thinking, where is it going? Actually, you do actually see that they use that money and keep it up to date.
Yeah, and I would say the parks here, from our experience so far, not that we've been to a lot in the US, but certainly here, are very well maintained as well.
So it's money well spent, and at least it's going back into the thing that you're using. So it's not this tax that disappears into the ether. It's actually been put in. All of this fencing seems new. So I'm enjoying it, or I've enjoyed it. It's worth my money.
I'm enjoying it, even though I started feeling a bit ill.
I could see the sweat coming through, so the pink hat's changed. Oh, another thing, I don't know whether it's picked up on the camera, so I've worn my hat this morning. I took it off and I was like, please let it be sand. We're not in the sand, because I've got this massive light patch here where half an hour in the sun has made that much difference between the bit that was shaded and the other bit. So now I've got to take it off so I can.
So probably think about your tan lines when you come out here.
Either stay fully shaded or don't. But that's it for today, unless we do something else. So that's it, at least for Red Rock.
Yeah, and for those of you that have been watching our channel, please continue to do so and comment. We're trying to do a mix of things at the moment in terms of sharing activities like this. So let us know what you think, because we're trying to do a mix of and updating you on key things around finance, me on the healthcare, living in Vegas, our weekly catch-ups that we do, which we need to do actually, but also just activities like this where we just show you what it's like living here, and let us know what you think and comment below. Thanks for watching.